7 o'clock, so we'll get started. You'll notice that we have a rotating slideshow going up here, and we'll leave that until we get to the program, so you might want to look at some of those slides because they contain a lot of information. Now, first, how many people are attending their first Dallas Sierra Club meeting tonight? Can I see a show of hands? Just a couple as far as I can see. So we want to make sure that you signed up our list here so that we can send you our newsletter, which comes out every month. It's free. Tells you what's going on in the club. Okay? I want to, before I forget, mention that we have nice t-shirts and polo shirts for sale up here. I think they're $10 and $15, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I want to mention that we have a lot of volunteer needs right now. We're looking for a secretary. We're looking for a person to bring snacks to the general meeting. We're looking for a person to schedule programs for the general meetings. We're looking for a lot of things. What else? Did I leave something out?
Programs.
You said that.
Said that. Come on, listen, Wendell, listen.
You just volunteered again.
Did you? I saw a hand up for programs back there.
Wendell volunteered again.
I want to announce that we had 3 vacancies on our executive committee, which was bad because we're supposed to have 9, but we recently had some volunteers, and 2 of them are some of our workers who are always around, but Liz Whelan is now on the executive committee. And Ginger Canyon Bradley. Over here. And the third person is Renee Roberson. Renee Robertson. Renee is not here tonight. Next time we see her, we'll introduce her to you. Okay. What else do I have to say here? I actually had some notes here.
Be helpful if you haven't.
Do we have any pre-meeting announcements that need to be made now before I go to committee reports? Okay, well let's start with brief committee reports on all our major committees so you'll know what's going on. I'm going to start, Bill, with the Outings Committee.
Well, I'm not out in this chair anymore.
Well, Mark's not here, so you have to take it.
All right. Well, since we're in the process of moving to Pueblo, Mark Stein took over his outings chair, so he's the one that's really up on what's going on. He and Arthur here, so I'm going to pester Arthur to help me out just a little bit. We've got a trip to the Uncompahgre Wilderness in Colorado coming up towards the end of July. That's a drive yourself out there trip. We're going to have our bus trip to Pecos Wilderness that'll be appearing, if it's not already, on the website very shortly.
Not quite ready to be changed.
It's not quite ready. We're, as always, with trips to the Forest Service, there's enormous problems with permits. So they're still struggling a little bit with permit issues, but they've got that worked out. And as soon as all the permits are in line, it'll go up on our website. What else we got going? We just did our wilderness navigation class.
We're in the summer doldrums.
We're in the summer doldrums, as Arthur says. Our biggest activity is in the spring when it's cool enough to go to Arkansas. In the summer, we kind of go into, I guess the technical term for heat is estivation. We sort of hibernate and wait for it to cool off again. And then in the fall, things will pick up. We'll do beginner backpack class. We'll do lots of beginner trips. So we'll get busy again in the fall. We may be able to sneak in a few day hikes, get out early before the heat arrives. But other than that, we're kind of in our summer doldrums.
All right, thanks, Bill. Let's do Conservation Committee next. Chris?
Okay.
This is a committee with lots going on.
How many of you were in that rainstorm Sunday? How many of you still don't have electricity? Yeah. One term for that type of extreme thunderstorm is rain bomb. Actually, I think I skipped to the next one. Nope, I don't have a slide on the rain bomb. I have a picture over there of a rain bomb. But we expect more of those types of extreme thunderstorms as the years go by. Just Saturday, at the last of the summer's climate change walk through downtown, I told some people about the rain bomb, and the next afternoon they thought I was a prophet. Last week I learned about the project Carry the Earth. And I want to offer to each of you the opportunity to take part in this. This is an art project created by Ronnie Siegel, an artist in California. She has made 20-something globes of various materials. This one is very lightweight. It looks like it might be plastic, but it is a plant-based material called NGO PLA resin that is compostable and recyclable and generally good for the earth. The idea is, if you accept an earth, you hold it in your hand and you think what you're going to do when you are carrying the earth in your hand. And it may be that you'll pick up litter or give up meat or take a hike in a beautiful place or write a poem. Whatever it is that you decide to do, you then blog about it on the Carry the Earth website and pass it on. And I talked to Ronnie Siegel, the artist, and she assured me that this is light enough to go hiking with people. It is very lightweight and durable. And I invite any of you who think that this is a neat idea to get in touch with me, and I will pass this earth along to you. Next. They're back. Waste Control Specialists is now asking for, they're applying to take high-level nuclear waste in their facility in Andrews County. We've been fighting this for years, those of you who are new to us. And so the SEED and NoNuclearWaste.org group are asking people to come to Midland to the hearing that will be held there. We will not be carrying signs and protesting. We will be wearing red and sitting in the gallery for that hearing. So I have a clipboard. That is one of the things that is on this clipboard. This will go around. If you can do that, or might be able to do that, put your name on here and I'll get in touch with you. Next. We need volunteers here too for Carry the Earth. We need people to man the table at Juneteenth next Wednesday. to travel to Midland, I mentioned, and to table at the Dallas Library in July. And come to board meetings if you're really interested in what's going on here. We're not just here to entertain you the way you will be entertained and educated tonight. Come to the board meetings and help us figure out what to do.
Chris, is that hearing, was that a federal hearing or state?
Federal. Nuclear
Regulatory Commission?
Regulatory Commission. It's a 3-judge panel. I'm not real strong on the details there as to how that works.
Typically have, yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Jim.
When you say board meetings, do you mean the executive committee of the Dallas Sierra Club?
Yes.
When is that?
That is on Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of each month normally, but the next one is actually going to be just an early version of an earlier time on the second Tuesday in July, because we don't want to have our executive committee meeting on the 4th of July. Renee Robertson just walked in. Thank you for being I'm glad to see you here. Okay, Dave?
Renee is one of our 3 new executive committee members, so we are very grateful that she has volunteered for that. Okay, let's do membership, Ginger.
Membership has been growing, thank you, and the Facebook amount is like up to 1,167 people or more. So Facebook is going gangbusters, which is great. And then I wanted to announce that we're having the picnic, the new member picnic on September 29th, which is a Sunday, from 10 to 1 in the afternoon. It's not going to rain. We're going to have food, free everything, drinks, water balloons, games, and bring the family, the kids and the dogs, and it's going to be fun. So September 29th, it's a Sunday, 10 to 1, new membership party picnic. Thank you.
Which is available to anybody who wants to come, not just new people.
All are welcome.
Yeah.
All are welcome.
Oh, good. Liz, do you want to say anything about ICO?
Just a quick.
I just want to let you know, some of you I know everybody's been disappointed that the Trinity Environmental Academy with which we work has closed. But I want to let you know that the prominent educators, creators of that school, got a $49,000 grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife to continue the outdoor education structure and idea of what they're doing within other schools. They've already targeted and working on, looks like at least 6 schools. And what they're doing is they're going to partner with our ICO program to incorporate those kids from all those different schools as a way to get the kids out on Saturdays, or out to actually do what they're learning. So there's bad news about Tri-EA, but really wonderful news because that gives us a whole new group of the audience with which to work at several different schools. We're not sure yet which of those schools. We're still working on that. They're working on it over the summer, but definite good news and momentum that I wanted to share with you.
And ICO stands for?
ICO stands for Inspire. That's the old name. I'm sorry, 25 years of habit. Inspiring Connections Outdoors, which is our Sierra Club outreach program to reach underserved kids and get them out on the dirt. And it's open to all volunteers. We need volunteers. We'll be working on things for the next couple of months of the summer. In August, I'll be contacting all volunteers to get everybody together in August and kind of do a little kickoff thing so that we're ready to then go back into the school year in September. So it's a really wonderful thing. It's not a huge volunteer commitment in the least. You just basically sign up for whatever date is convenient to you. We do the little orientation for new volunteers so you see what we're about, but a really wonderful, heartwarming way to get these kids out and help them learn to love nature like we do.
Okay, Dick, you can do David's political committee report.
Thank you. We have some very exciting political things coming up this month. On Sunday, the 30th, that's 2 weeks from this Sunday, the National Sierra Club Political Committee is coming to Dallas to get our input because Texas is potentially so important in the 2020 elections.
When is that, Dick? When was that?
It's the 30th, 2 weeks from Sunday. It turns out we need to protect Colin Allred's seat. And we need to pick up at least one more seat that's in play in District 24, which is occupied by Kenny Marchant, but we have a very good chance. We almost took it last time. We want to take it this time. So the National Committee is coming to get our ideas about what's important, how we do it, who do we endorse, what are the characteristics we're looking for, and who we endorse, and when do we endorse. Is it after the convention, before the convention, when someone has a clear majority, whatever. And they want our input. So that is Sunday the 30th from 2 to 4 at the CWA Communication Workers of America Hall on Washington Ave. This announcement's on our Facebook page. But we're looking for people who will sign up to come so we can at least know who's coming. And if you are inclined to and will commit to come, please sign up so David Griggs can give you more information.
Is it on our website?
It is.
It's on our website. It is not yet on Facebook until we find the wording that National wants us to use. And this is for members and prospective members, because of the nature of the work that's being done. If you're not quite a member, you can join for $15 and be a member. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, John, have I left out any committee reports? Oh, thank God. Now, we're going to have a program tonight about Phantom Ranch down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, right, Bill?
That's it.
And it's going to be by Bill Greer, who is leaving us to move to Pueblo, Colorado. So, somebody provided this picture. So we're showing it.
Well, that was that little, that was Queen Wilhelmina.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little, where we finally got the culture. Yeah.
This isn't all that we're doing. We had a big shindig party. So this is the last meeting y'all are going to be at, right?
Most likely.
Most likely. So tonight's the time to say goodbye to Bill Greer after the meeting is over, if you want to.
And
Sue.
Oh yeah, Sue. She's the one that's taking him to Pueblo.
Dragging them, kicking and
Dragging
screaming
them to
to
Pueblo.
have a view of San Bernardino Cristo Mountain.
Yeah, into the beautiful mountains, cool mountains.
Oh.
Dallas Sierra Club West.
You may live to regret that. Is there more to this show? Okay, Bill. So our program is going to be by Bill Greer, who I think you know who he is by now.
Quicker. There we go. I think that's just for the. If you got it, yeah, that'd be better.
Or you can use this.
Yeah, this is easier. That's all right. No, this goes over your ear. This has got to go in this ear. All right.
All right, are we live? Evidently we are. All right. This is about a trip. How many people have been to Grand Canyon? Well, a lot of people. How many have been below the rim? That's an unusually high number. How many have been to Phantom Ranch? All right, that's more than I expected. We were told that of all the millions of people who visit Grand Canyon, only 1% go below the rim. And of those 1%, only 1% stay at Phantom Ranch. So it's a pretty select group. So we're going to talk a little bit about our trip to Phantom Ranch and how that worked for us. All right, first, probably you guys already know where Grand Canyon is, but for the majority of people generally that don't know, this is, of course, we're here in Dallas, Arizona. It's on the Colorado River up in northern Arizona. All right, zoom in a little bit. This is the South Rim facilities. This is where most people, 90% of the people who visit Grand Canyon just visit the South Rim. This is where all the lodges, all the facilities are. North Rim is out of this picture. Phantom Ranch is down here on the other side of the river. So there's two ways you can get there. You could go down the Bright Angel Trail, which comes down the river here, and then you follow the river trail, go across the Silver Bridge, or you can take South Kaibab, which goes along this ridge, follows this down, goes across the Black Bridge here, and then you end up at Phantom Ranch. We chose to go down South Kaibab, come back up Bright Angel. So we'll talk more about those a little bit. But you really can't appreciate a trip to Phantom Ranch unless you know a little bit about the history of the area about Phantom Ranch. We were far from the first people to visit it. The ancestral Pueblans have lived there since prehistoric times. We don't really know how long, but thousands of years. But in 1903, there was a kind of a tourist camp there. David Rust built Rust's Camp, basically about where Phantom Ranch is today. So around the turn of the century, facilities were a little primitive, but you could go down there, they'd feed you, you'd spend the night. Getting across the river was a little more exciting than it is today. Especially when it was windy, that car ride would get pretty exciting. But that was better than swimming across that Colorado River, especially if it was in flood stage. This is 1908, so that's how people get into Rust's Camp. Well, in 1923, the Park Service decided they needed something a little bit more elaborate in that area. Now, this was in a time when women just weren't allowed to do things like that. But Mary Coulter, through just astounding skill, had risen to the position of chief architect for the Fred Harvey Company. They mostly did facilities for the railroads, but the Park Service got them to design and build Phantom Ranch. And she developed a whole new system of architecture that today is known as parkitecture. And you know, just through sheer talent, she rose to the level of chief architect for that company at a time, like I said, when women just weren't allowed to do that. And she wanted Phantom Ranch to look like it kind of grew out of the ground there. She didn't want it to stand out. And that's the way all of her buildings work. But most of everything she designed back in the 20s is still in use today. If you want to spend the night on the South Rim of Grand Canyon, you can stay at Bright Angel Lodge, which was designed by Mary Coulter, and still looks pretty much like it did when she designed it. It's a really good place. But, so they decided that for Phantom Ranch to be, the cable car wouldn't do it. They wanted something a little bit more substantial. So they built what today is known as the Black Bridge. Now, then, mostly as today, the only way to get down there is by trail. And you can't load a 8-ton cable on the back of a mule. So they loaded it up on a team of Havasupai workers. And if you do the arithmetic, those 42 workers, each one of them was carrying about 50 pounds of cable. And you just had this long centipede going down the trail. And they had to bring 8 of those cables down there. And they're still in use today. That's how we got to Phantom Ranch, is going across the Black Bridge that these guys hauled down there. During the 30s, the CCC put in a lot of work at Phantom Ranch. And a lot of their trails are still there today. You'll see on our hikes some of the stonework and some of the trail work that the CCC did back in the 30s. Just like almost anywhere you go in the national parks, a lot of the stuff they did is still in use today. We weren't the first Sierra Club group to visit Phantom Ranch. This is a 1948 Sierra Club group that seemed to be having a good time. All right, we walked down there, but really that's a fairly recent thing. Until the 60s, almost everyone that visited Phantom Ranch and almost everything that arrived at Phantom Ranch got down on the back of a mule, including a washing machine. But in the 60s, yeah, that's a washing machine. That's what they do for a living. But in the 60s, hiking became popular, walking became popular, and people started walking down to Phantom Ranch. And they actually changed the facilities a little bit to accommodate that. All right, for most of its history, to get a reservation at Phantom Ranch, it was basically a telephone lottery. You know, at a certain time on a certain day, the phone lines would open, and people would be dialing and dialing and dialing, and whoever got through to an operator got a reservation. If you were unlucky, trying to dial through, you didn't get a reservation. So in November of 2017, the Park Service decided to make it an official lottery. There was a 2-week window when you could enter the lottery. There wasn't any charge to enter, but there was a 2-week window you could enter, and then they just pulled everybody's reservation out at random. And if they could fill your reservation, you got a place at Phantom Ranch. So Sue and I, and then Mike and Diana Rollins, who we've done a lot of trips in Grand Canyon with, decided that, I never win anything, but what the heck, let's enter the lottery and see what happens. So what the deal is, if you were a winner, you would get an email from the Park Service the first week in December. If you were a loser, it would come later. So sure enough, early in December, we got an email from the Park Service that we hit the jackpot. We had our first choice for 3 nights at Phantom Ranch. Now this is in November of 17, and that's for a stay in January of 2019. So it's basically 15 months out. So there's plenty of time to make other plans. And the plan was we would fly to Flagstaff, spend the night in Flagstaff, and then drive to the South Rim, spend the night there, and then head down early Monday morning. And back in November of 2017, we were figuring, well, January there could be a little ice, maybe you might even get some snow if you were lucky. But, global warming coming along, you're not getting anything serious. Well, we got up the Saturday morning in Flagstaff, Sunday morning in Flagstaff, and it was snowing like some bitch. it was really coming down hard and not showing any signs of stopping. And the further north we got towards Grand Canyon, the snowier it got. And it was starting to look like Antarctica by the time we got into the park. This is in the park. That's one of their little shuttle buses there. And it was a little bit more snow than we were expecting. But we had some time Sunday to walk around and see what was going on. And you can see, the snow on all the peaks around there. Now, it's typically 30 degrees warmer at the bottom of the canyon than the top, so the snow doesn't go all the way down, but the rims were quite snowy. And they were warning about this. Now, when they say crampons are required, they don't mean the 2-inch long spikes like you see people on Everest using. What we used are these little gizmos here, the yak tracks. They hook over the toe of your boot, and then you pull them over the heel of the boot, and the strap goes over the top. And they're basically tire chains for hiking boots. They're very light. You can walk over most flooring and not do any damage, but they make a huge difference on these trails. We always felt very secure even where they were just solid ice. But heading down just in shoes, we saw a couple of people trying to do that. And about the first 20 feet on the Bright Angel Trail, there's a handrail, and people were hanging on the handrail and trying to work their way down sideways. And you're not going to make it down the river that way. So you really did need some sort of traction device. But we got a chance to look around a little bit on the rim and see what was lying in store for us. Now, if you've ever been to Indian Garden, this is Indian Garden right down here. There's a lot of springs. There's a little campground there. This is the trail out to Plateau Point, which you can actually look down on the river, which for most of the South Rim you can't do, because the Grand Canyon drops kind of steeply, then there's the Tonto Plateau, and then the river is down in the inner gorge. It's really a canyon inside of a canyon. So for most of the South Rim, you really can't see the river. But you can walk down to this Plateau Point here, and you can look down on the river. The trail, the Bright Angel Trail, follows the creek for a while, and then it goes over this little divide and goes down a parallel drainage. So that's the way we decided we'd come back up. So the next morning, Monday morning, we're at the bus stop for the ride to the South Kaibab trailhead. There's no private vehicle access to South Kaibab. The only way you can get there is to ride their hiker shuttle. So we were sitting there waiting for the first hiker shuttle to the South Kaibab trailhead. And dressed pretty warmly. It was nippy up on top. South Kaibab Trail, I had never been down before all the way to the river. The Park Service describes it as a trail in a hurry to get to the river. And they aren't kidding. It drops right at a mile in about a mile vertically and about 7 miles horizontally. And, of course, it was snowy at the top, but it's typically 30 degrees warmer at the bottom than the top. So we knew we'd lose the snow partway down. But back in 1924, about the time they were building Bright Angel, or about the time they were building Phantom Ranch, the Bright Angel Trail was there, but a guy had established some pretty much bogus mining claims along it and was charging the toll to use the Bright Angel Trail. So the Park Service built the South Kaibab so that people could get to their new Phantom Ranch without paying the toll on the Bright Angel Trail. And shortly after that, when the South Kaibab was completed, the guy gave up the leases and turned the trail over to the Park Service. So now there were two ways to get to Phantom Ranch. They don't recommend South Kaibab in the summer, especially coming uphill, because there's very little shade and there's no water. And you would roast coming up that thing in the summer. But, with a foot or so of new snow on the ground, it really wasn't a problem, the heat. All right. This is South Kaibab. The trailhead is actually just off the page a little bit. And the first part of it follows this ridge back here and swings in under O'Neill Butte and then continues on out the ridge. And then there's a bunch of switchbacks that take you down here. And then this is the edge of the Tonto Plateau. And you come to the tip-off where you drop down into the inner gorge. And it's mostly pretty steep, lots of switchbacks. If you don't like switchbacks, you don't want to hike down to the Colorado River. So you'll see some pictures. This zooms in a little bit. There's a little rest area there that has some potties. We didn't linger long because it was still pretty nippy. And then it drops in under the butte, and then that's that series of switchbacks. All right, so about 9 o'clock, we were at the trailhead and we were changing up for the trip down the South Kaibab. You can see what the conditions were like. You really didn't want to do it in regular boots. So that's the trail. It's in the summer, it's a good wide trail. It's easy going. I mean, it's sidewalk width, but there are places that there's probably a 500-foot drop beside the trail. So you really wouldn't want to slide off of it. You really wanted the crampons or the app tracks or something like that. If you slipped off here, it would be a bad day. With lots of switchbacks. Now this is a little bit of the trail coming down. This more switchbacks here, and then it traverses across to where we were standing. If you look real close, there's a couple of people standing right there. But a very scenic trail. And Ooh-Ah Point is appropriately named because everybody comes around the bend and there's this huge vista and they go, ooh-ah. So that's O'Neill Butte right there. If you look real close, you can kind of see the Well, yeah, it was nippy the day we were there. But if you look real close, you can see some of the trail going down. There's more switchbacks here. The tip-offs is down in there. That's the inner gorge over here. This is all on the north rim. We took a brief break near O'Neill. It's out of the wind, but we didn't linger too long because it got kind of nippy when you stopped. But there's places you just really wouldn't want to slide off that trail, so you really appreciated having the yak tracks. And they worked exceptionally well. We always felt very comfortable, very secure with them. The snow, fresh snow is actually grippier than the ice we had coming back up. If you look real close, you can see part of the Tonto Trail coming across here. And you can see that this is our first glimpse of the Colorado River. This is the Tonto Plateau dropping down into the inner gorge. And so we're still, maybe halfway there, but we got our first actual glimpse of the Colorado River. It's a real scenic trail. This is that series of switchbacks below O'Neill Butte, and then it traverses back over here to the tip-off is like about here, where you drop down into the inner gorge. But lots of switchbacks. But what else that? Then it got muddy. As you got down below where most of the snow had melted, it just turned into mud. But at least it wasn't too slick. Now, this area was interesting. There's a couple of patches of this real red soil. You go around that little ridge there, and then you drop down into the inner gorge. You can see some patches of it over on the other side here. But you can see we're pretty much out of the snow. By this point, we had shed the yak tracks and it's just, walking on the trail. This is our first good glimpse of Phantom Ranch. This is Bright Angel Creek coming down here. Phantom Ranch is back actually kind of behind that little knob there. That's the Silver Bridge, and that's the Black Bridge. We crossed that bridge, walked up, and then to Phantom Ranch. And then leaving, came down here, across the Silver Bridge, and then this is the river trail that goes down to pick up Bright Angel Trail, where you head back up. Now the Black Bridge is kind of unusual. The south side of it ends in a tunnel. So you go through this tunnel, and then you come out of the tunnel, and you're on the bridge. This is the one that was built in 1928. These are the anchors for those 1-ton cables that the Havasupai carried down. So we got across the bridge and we ride in Phantom Ranch. This is our little cabin. Now, this is a stitch of several very wide angle lenses, so it's actually quite a bit smaller maybe than this picture makes it look. But, after you've walked down the South Kaibab Trail and it's getting to be supper time, you're not going to be real picky. Almost anything that's warm and soft and has a good blanket on it's looking pretty comfy. Now, you notice these big duffels here. For a fairly modest charge, you can hire the mules to carry your duffel down. And Amazon had one that was just exactly the size that they allowed. And you're allowed 30 pounds. If it's over 30 pounds, they give it back to you and you've got to shed some. But you're allowed 30 pounds, anything that'll fit in that duffel. So we had, changes of clothes and toiletries, maybe a few small bottles of wine. So really all we had to carry down was our day hike stuff and some emergency clothes and first aid kit and lunch for the day and snacks. So, it's fairly light load. The mules do a lot of the work for you. That's the front of the building. You've got a little sink and a little potty. And they used to have a fireplace back when Mary Coulter built the thing, but of course there's no wood down there, so the wood was all having to come down on the mules. So now it's electrically heated, and it's cool in the summer because it can hit 120 degrees down there in the summer. So there's a little window unit that heats it and cools it. It's pretty comfy. There we go. And then of course they feed you. And it's family style. They just bring out big bowls of everything. And they only have 3 meals. They have a vegetarian stew, they have a non-vegetarian stew, and then they have a steak dinner. So since I was there for 3 nights, I got one of each. Our friends, the Rawlins, are vegetarians, so they got basically the same thing all 3 nights. But it was really tasty and quite hearty. Lots of beans, so tended to have some minor side effects. But it was quite tasty. The food was very good. Maybe I'm not a good judge of it after I've come down to South Kaibab, but to me it seemed pretty good. And they have beer. So we had 3 nights, so we had 2 full days at Phantom Ranch. And the first day we were, tired from the South Kaibab, so we weren't too ambitious. First, the morning, we just kind of did some easy walks around Phantom Ranch just to look the place over. We weren't in a hurry. We were there for 3 nights, so we just kind of strolled through Phantom Ranch and looked around. These are some of the buildings that Mary Coulter designed. There we go. That's our little cabin. You can get a better idea of how small it is. But they're very little changed from when Mary designed them. And some of the other cabins, you can see how they look like they just came from the surrounding hills, which they probably did actually, although they're rounded, so they're mostly creek cobbles. Now we were there during the government shutdown, so fortunately we didn't really interfere with our plans, but they weren't giving out any new permits. But we saw a lot of people that figured, well, since the government shut down, there's not going to be rangers running around. So there were a lot of people hiking without permits. Hopefully some of them got caught because there were some rangers down there on duty, but there were a lot of people hiking illegally. So, like I say, it's 30 degrees warmer down at the bottom of the canyon, and when you've just had a major snowstorm, that's pretty pleasant. If you're there when it's 90 degrees up on the south rim, it can get pretty toasty down at Phantom Ranch. It can hit 120 degrees down there. I'm not going to be down there when it's that hot. I don't do well when it's real hot. But these kind of temperatures, I'm a happy camper. This is Mike and Diana Rollins. They were enjoying the sun. It was cool enough that the sunshine felt pretty good, especially since it had been kind of cloudy and snowy the day before. Now, not everything in these days arrives by mule. We got a little bit of an air show from some new mattresses and some other supplies that were coming in by Park Service helicopter. They made several trips, and it was quite an air show. It was entertaining to watch. Those guys know what they're doing. But after lunch, we decided to hike up to Phantom Creek, which is what Phantom Ranch was named after. It's along Bright Angel Creek, which comes all the way down from the north rim. Phantom Creek is a tributary to it. And we had thought about hiking up Phantom Creek, but we'd read that you could just get about 100 yards and you came to a pool that was chest deep, which might be okay in the summer, but it's 40 degrees. We weren't going to wade the chest deep pool. So we just kind of walked up and looked at it. So maybe another day. But this is an area called the Box. It's where Bright Angel Creek cuts through this very hard Vishnu schist. And the angle of walls is determined by how hard the rock is. So in very hard rock, you get very steep, narrow canyons. In softer rock, you get wider, more open canyons. And this is very hard rock, so you get some very narrow canyon. And in the summer, the sun shines in on those dark rocks, and it will just cook you. The Park Service says, do not enter the box between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. or you will roast. So they get tired of pulling out people with heat stroke. It's just unbearable in there in the summer. But, in January after a snowstorm, it was quite pleasant. You can see it was shady. We thoroughly enjoyed walking up it. That's looking up Phantom Creek. You can see it's also a very narrow creek because it's going through that hard Vishnu schist. They say it got named Phantom Creek because they were trying to plot it by bearings from up on the south rim, and they kept losing it. It's so narrow, it's hard to keep track of it. So they named it Phantom Creek. This is the two rocks that make up the inner gorge. This is the very hard Vishnu schist, and that's the rock that was there originally. This is the Zoroaster granite that intruded into it much later. On our backpack trip, rim to rim, we decided it looked like marble ice cream. But maybe that's because we've been hiking for 4 days at that point, and we were already having food fantasies. But they call you to supper. The guy briefs you, what table you're going to be. Okay, rear party, you're at table 4. And there's actually 2 seatings. The steak dinner is early, and then the 2 stew dinners are a little bit later. But since I was having steak dinner and the other 3 were having the stew dinner, they actually seated them with me at the steak dinner. So we all got to have supper together. And that was nice of them. They're all, very into Phantom Ranch and really trying to make sure that everybody enjoys it. And they're not there for the money, for sure. But, all right. So our second full day at Phantom Ranch, we were a little bit recovered from the South Kaibab Trail. So we decided to tackle the Clear Creek Trail, which was built by the CCC in the 30s, and it climbs up to the Tonto Plateau on the north side. So this is looking back down at the Clear Creek Trail. This is all CCC work. You can see some of their stonework there. It was built in the 30s and still in use today. This is looking at the south rim. Still quite a bit of snow up there. Now this is CCC work. This is, building the trail on that steep ridge. Now the CCC built this real neat stone bench here, and I got a picture of us sitting on it. I forgot to get a picture of the bench just by itself because it's really neat. They had these big flat rocks and built this, really neat park bench up on the ridge with this wonderful scenery all around. It's an amazing work. Still there, still in use. And from the Clear Creek Trail, you can kind of look down on Phantom Ranch. This is Bright Angel Creek here. That's our little cabin right there. That's the dining hall. Oh, but that's our cabin right there. This is the dining hall here. This is the employees' dormitory. And here's some more of the cabins here. So it's a pretty compact little place and doesn't really stand out like maybe a more modern structure would. So we headed on up Clear Creek a little bit and see more of the CCC work. Now this is looking back at the tip-off. The trail, this is where all that red soil was. The trail kind of traverses above it and then comes down through here. The Black Ridge is kind of hidden behind that. Now, some of us did, Sue and I and then the Rawlins have also done a river trip on Grand Canyon. And one of our campsites is right here. That's looking down at the inner gorge. You can see how steep those hard rocks cause the canyon to be. Now, the Clear Creek Trail heads on just under the Tonto Plateau. But as we came around this bend, it got quite windy, and we were starting to get kind of hungry. And there was a nice sheltered spot back a little bit that was out of the wind and had sunshine and had incredible views. So we decided it was lunchtime. And just sat back and soaked up the views. And decided that was far enough and got back in time for a nap.
We had to save our energy to hike up the next day.
That's right. We were heading up the next day, and it was I didn't really want to do it, but I was wanting to save energy for the next day. It's a vacation. What can I say? The first two mornings, we'd opted for the 7:30 breakfast. They have two seatings for breakfast, one at 5:30 and one at 7. And since it's a vacation, the first two times we'd opted for the 7 o'clock breakfast. But we knew we had a long day, going back up, so we opted for the early breakfast on our up day, and actually started out with flashlights with our headlights, because it didn't get light till about 7, but we were on the trail just before 7. So the Bright Angel Trail covers fewer vertical feet in more miles. So you've got less climb, more miles, so it's not nearly as steep. It doesn't have, the stair-step effect that you have a lot of the South Kaibab. And after Indian Garden, there are 2 rest houses that really divide the trail up into 3 equal parts. So you've got kind of goals part way to make it a little easier going. I'd say in 1890, Ralph Cameron claimed the trail and was charging people a $1 toll, but finally the Park Service got control of it in 1928. But the trail has been used since prehistoric times by the Indians, so it's not a new trail. It's been improved and maybe rerouted a little bit, but it's still basically the way the Indians got down there in prehistoric times. All right, so this is Phantom Ranch here. You cross on the Silver Bridge and you follow the river. There's no elevation change for the first 2 miles, and there's a little rest house there. And then you head up the side creek. And right in here is an area called the Devil's Corkscrew, because it's a series of switchbacks that in the summer, unless you get there really, really early, the sun shines in on it. And it's the switchbacks on black rock, and it'll just cook you. In January, there's no sun, it's cold, so it wasn't nearly as bad. But I can see where in the summer that would be pretty bad. And this is Indian Garden here, and that's where you do most of the climbing. Indian Garden is about halfway in miles, but it's only about 1/3 of the way in climb. So you've still got a lot of climbing ahead of you when you get there. So we were on the trail before it really got light. We were using flashlights for maybe the first 15, 20 minutes or so. We got across the river when it was just starting to get a little bit of light. Whoops. Oh, there we go. This thing's not cooperating. There's a stretch of about 1 mile where you're following the river that's very sandy. And last time we were there, it was dry and it was really a slog. It was like hiking through a sand trap on the golf course, and it was just really a slog. But on this trip, after all that precipitation, which is mostly rain down here, it was nice and firm, and it wasn't nearly as bad. So maybe partly it's because we had 2 days rest, but it was much firmer and just not nearly as hard going. So, but it follows the river. You can see the trail here. And then after you leave the river, you start up another side drainage, still in that dark, this is the dark Vishnu schist, the hard rock. This is some of it over here. And this is the Devil's Corkscrew. You can see you coming up the drainage here, and then it's a series of switchbacks. And in January, it was pretty easy going, but I can see where in summer that would be a chore. And then at the top of the corkscrew, you just make this long traverse over into the Bright Angel drainage. There's the corkscrew there. And Bright Angel Creek, the reason it doesn't follow it is because Bright Angel drops into this very narrow little crevice here. You're not going to bring a trail up that. But then you follow this ledge. And they have all kinds of warnings about the heat, which with 30 degrees we didn't worry too much about. But boy, in the summer, people will come out there, it's 120 degrees down by the river, and they try to go down to the river and back up in one day. And the heat stroke about halfway back up, because it's getting to be the hottest part of the day, they're tired. But after 3 nights at Phantom Ranch and we're all rested up and just carrying day hike stuff, it was pretty easy going. This Indian Garden, the trail kind of bypasses the campground. I've stayed there a couple of times. It's very nice. Plenty of water. And above Indian Garden, we started seeing a few little patches of snow. And very shortly thereafter, we got into areas that had been pretty much shaded. And they were some of the worst trails of the trip because the snow had gotten real soft and slushy during the day. And then it froze at night. And then it would get slushy again, then it would freeze. So it was pretty much ice. But the yak tracks did great on it. And even on that pretty solid ice, we always felt very secure. And you can see, that this is the trail. As you get up into the shaded areas is where you start to get back into the snow. Go back here one. Now, there's a fault line right here. If you notice, this is the Coconino sandstone. If you notice, it's higher over here than over here. And that's because there's a fault, and they've been displaced. And the trail pretty much follows that fault. It makes a natural weak spot in the cliffs. So, that's where the trail goes. And these are the areas that started getting kind of icy. And that's the first rest house. They've got little benches and a potty nearby. More switchbacks. Of course, we were going up these. And that's the last of the trail. There's switchbacks continue up through there and then right up through that little crevice. Now, another warning, I think I just, what's going on here? Hello? I think I just lost you.
Here, let's use this mic.
It's on. Don't worry about it. I can talk. Can anybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, let me know if you can.
Get the mic.
All right.
Wendell can't hear you back there.
Yeah, well, he needs to turn his hearing aid on. There you go.
Huh? Turn on what?
Wendell who?
Let's see, there we go. Let's see if I got enough hands to keep everything going here. That's the reason I like the ear mic, because I need one hand for this thing, one hand for the pointer, and didn't leave anything for the microphone. So we'll see what we can do. But yeah, they've got warnings that down is optional, up is mandatory. Because people will go, it's unlike a mountain where people can get up, they can probably get down. The easier way, at least aerobically, is down. So, they constantly have people go down, and then they run out of steam, and it starts to get hot, and they're out of water and out of food, so they need somebody to rescue them. There's one of the, let's see if the pointer on this thing works. Oops, wrong button. All right, so I'll do without it. That's one of the little rest houses with a potty. Yeah. What did I do?
You messed it up.
There we go. Thank you. I know this thing's got a pointer somewhere. Oh well. We'll just do without it. Yeah, I would think so, but I don't see it. That button. Oh, here we go. Hey, I think I found it. All right. Yeah, that's one of the little rest houses with the potty. So they're a welcome stop, especially if you've been hitting the water jug as you ought to be.
Although that was all ice.
Yeah. But it was quite icy, but the yak tracks did great. I always felt very secure on it. But, that 30-degree temperature change is starting to kick in, so it was cooler up towards the top. But we were expecting it, so we had plenty of warm clothes. Plus, you're going uphill, so you generate lots of heat. And you see the trail is starting to turn snowy again, rather than just icy. Now, one thing you can really see in this picture, this is the Coconino sandstone, and this is the next layer whose name escapes me. But look how sharp the dividing line between the two is. And what happened there, the climate changed from a swamp, basically, that was generating this stuff, to desert. This is all fossilized sand dunes. And you get up close and look to it, and it's a very sharp dividing line, which means the climate changed really abruptly from the swamp to the desert, to sand dunes. So hiking the Grand Canyon is pretty much a nonstop geology lesson. It's really interesting if you take the time to enjoy it. And this is getting near the top. When you start coming to these two tunnels, you're kind of happy to see them because those are very near the top. That's a good landmark. You're getting just almost there. It's a good place to stop and get a little break because you know you about got it made. That's looking down the Indian Garden. And that's the trailhead. So we might look a little punch drunk. We were tired. I don't mind admitting it. And we were actually staying at the Mazuk Lodge, which is about a quarter-mile away. And Bright Angel Lodge was right at the top. So we went in there and into the restaurant and collapsed and ordered beer, supper, and dessert, and didn't stir for about 2 hours. But our only goal was to get to the top before sunset. And we had headlights, so we could have made it after dark. We had to. But we really wanted to get to the top before sunset. And that's the El Tobar. And it's still got some sun on it. So we were quite proud of ourselves. All right. So you think Phantom Ranch is neat and you want to stay there. How do you get to do that? There's a couple of little tricks. The first thing you've got to do, 15 months before you want to go there, you enter the lottery. You just go to the Park Service website, and they have a Phantom Ranch section, and you go there and you enter the lottery. Your next step is to get lucky. Now, there's some things you can do to help yourself out a little bit, though. What they do is pull reservations or pull entries out at random. If you're the very first one that gets pulled out, you're going to get whatever you ask for. If you're the very last one to pull out, unless you're extraordinarily lucky, you're not going to get anything. In between, there's a range of possibilities. So we decided, best of all possible worlds, we wanted to head down, I think it was January 7th, wasn't it? Anyway, we had a date. So our first choice was 3 consecutive nights starting this date. But for a second choice, we said 3 consecutive nights starting any time in January. Your reservations can't cross into a different month. But we just said for our second choice, 3 nights any time in January. So when they pulled ours out, if our first choice date had been filled up, but the next day there were 3 days consecutive available, we would still have been a winner. So if you're flexible, you can greatly increase your chances of winning a reservation. And you get the news 15 months out, so there's plenty of time to make other arrangements. And so what you're looking for is to get email from Park Service early in December or early the month after you entered. And then winners have about a 2-week window where they can make reservations for meals and double service and all this other stuff before those things are opened up to other people. So, people that are staying at Phantom Ranch get first choice for meals. If you're backpacking, you don't get a permit until about 4 months out, so you're gonna have to be pretty lucky to get meals at Phantom. But one time we were able to get a couple of breakfasts. But winners of reservation get first choice. All right, so this is the email you want to get from the Park Service. And if you're a winner, you'll get it, the first week of the month after you enter. If you're a loser, you won't get it till the end of the month. So you really want to see this email early the month after you entered the lottery. So that's it. That's what Phantom Ranch was like for us. It's a really neat place. It's a real institution. And I think, like I say, you have to know some of the history of the place and know a little bit about Mary Coulter and, know kind of what the place is to really appreciate what a visit there is like. So, any questions, comments? Yes?
Are the reservations transferable?
No.
So
The reservations are not
you can't have
transferable.
20 of your friends get.
No. Yes?
Yeah, 20 years ago, you could be a winner for accommodations, but a loser and get the stew. Is there a limit now? If you win the accommodation,
If
you
you-
guarantee the state?
If you win a reservation, there's a 2-week window where only people who have reservations at Phantom Ranch can reserve double service or meals. So they're going to get whatever they want. And then after that window closes, if there's anything left, other people can claim them. And there's some extras. Like I say, on the last time we did a rim-to-rim backpack, we got 2 breakfasts at Phantom Ranch. Everything else was claimed. But if you've got a reservation at Phantom Ranch, you're going to get whatever meals and double service and everything else you want because you get first choice. At least during that 2-week window. Now, 6 months later you decide, well, gee, I didn't make reservations for dinner. I better do it. You better be ready to haul some food down.
Do they still have the dormitory quarters also?
They do. And that's mostly backpackers. But anybody that wants to, once you're a winner in the lottery, you've got whatever you asked for. But yeah, the dorms are still there. And they actually didn't build those dorms until the 60s when people started walking down there. Because people who rode the mule weren't interested in it. So they're actually more recent.
What's the total capacity of the area down there?
It's not real high. I've seen the number and I ought to know it, but I don't recall. It's less than 100. I'm saying it's around 70 or something, but I don't recall. Yes?
We used to go camping down there, like none of these buildings and all that. Do they still have camping areas?
Oh yeah, that's the Bright Angel Campground. It's downstream from Phantom Ranch a little bit. But Phantom Ranch was built in built in 1923. And I think the Bright Angel Campground came along quite a bit later when people started walking down there. It probably, no, because I've seen the CCC work on it. So it was probably built about the same time as Phantom Ranch.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you see any backpackers down there?
Oh, we did. You bet. Because it's nice and warm down there. It was about the coldest we saw at Phantom Ranch was 40s, and that wouldn't be bad for backpacking at all. Yes.
When was the Silver Bridge built?
I think it was built when they built the pipeline. I think it was in the 60s.
Much later.
Yeah, much later. But the Black Bridge is the original one. But it's 1923. So, anybody else? Yes.
Is it running electricity down there?
Oh, yes.
Air conditioning?
Yeah, you bet.
Coming from the rim.
It's coming down. I don't know which rim it comes. I think it comes down from South Rim, but the cables are buried, so you don't really see it. All of the water on South Rim comes down from Roaring Springs, which is far up Bright Angel Creek, and it's just gravity flow down to the river and then back up to Indian Garden, and then it's pumped from Indian Garden up.
I think the electric line follows on top of that. Because at one point you see the water pipe, but then there's a cable on top of
Yeah.
it too. I think that's the electric line.
Yeah, I think it does come down from South Rim, but I'm not for certain, but I think that's probably right. Yes?
Was that much snow there normal for the Grand Canyon?
That's unusual to have that much. We got about a foot, that night before we headed down. So, but it's not unheard of.
But the North Rim gets a lot more snow.
Oh, yeah.
The North Rim's closed in the wintertime.
Yeah, the North Rim closes end of November, but it's 1,000 feet higher, so it gets a lot more snow. But it's unusual to see that much on South Rim. But it was pretty neat. What's that?
It used to be more normal, but they haven't had a snowfall like that for about 5 to 7 years, they said.
Yeah.
Part of that, they just haven't had.
So it was pretty neat. It was very scenic, and with the ike tracks, we made it okay. Although we talked to one couple that had been down to Phantom Ranch 9 times, and they said after that many times, it normally took them about 2.5 hours to get down there, because they're probably not taking very many pictures, not as many as we did. They said that they took them 4 hours. So the snow did kind of slow things down a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed, unless you were just focusing on the ram and everything, did you see the wildlife?
Oh, we did. They're not very wild up on the North Rim. They, you come out of the lodge and there's elk and deer just kind of sitting there looking at you. No bears, not on the rim. Back on North Rim, if you get away from the lodge, you might see one. But the elk are almost tame. An earlier trip, we came out of El Tovar Lodge, and there was this little area about 20 feet square that was fenced off, and we saw this incredible statue of a bull elk there. I mean, every hair and antler was in place, and it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And then it kind of did this. Oops.
Little ropes with a flagpole and lights on. And we're like, when did they get that statue?
But when we came out, it was absolutely motionless. Yeah. And it was in this little fenced-in enclosure, and we thought that was the most detailed, beautiful statue we'd ever seen in our life. And then it turns its head to look at us. Ooh, maybe we shouldn't get this close. It had a huge rack. I mean, it was beautiful. But there are some, because they know predators don't go there, so they hang out around the lodges.
There are mountain lions in that region, but they're so secretive. You'll sometimes come across bighorn sheep and we did see a bighorn sheep while we were walking.
Yeah, we did, partway down.
Between 2 of the trails, the switchback. But you'll sometimes see one that maybe was, a lion may have caused a fall to come off the rocks or got it towards the bottom. You'll see carcass, but you don't really see the animal. The mule deer go through in the morning and trim up the, bushes and all that, but trees, but that's about it.
They know there aren't any predators around. Nobody's going to bother them, so they pretty much ignore you, and you kind of ignore them, and everybody gets along well.
No hunting in the national park.
No.
Bill, wouldn't you, under warmer weather, you would recommend taking 2 days out? One day up to the gardens and then 1 day out?
Yeah.
When we backpacking, that's what I've done. There's a way, I backpacked rim to rim, and there's a place partway down from North Rim, Cottonwood, where you can camp. And we spent 2 nights there. and then spent 2 nights down by the river, and then spent 2 nights up in Indian Garden. But that was backpacking, and we wanted to have time to look around and enjoy it. And we did long day hikes on all those layover days, and just thoroughly enjoyed, taking that leisurely trip. It's a little harder to get a permit for 6 days than for just 2 or 3. But I'm not sure I'd want to do a quicker trip even if I could.
But didn't you find that your odds were increased because you were willing to go in January?
Oh yeah, I think so.
I suspect that maybe starting in March or whatever, nobody's going to get a permit in Phantom Ranch except somebody on a mule.
Well, yeah, they have lots of permits for hikers. It's just there's probably more people entering the lottery, so your chances probably aren't as good. But you can get permits they don't really care how you get down there. We just had 3 nights reserved at Phantom Ranch, and then making reservations for a mule would have been a separate thing. Because Sue was having some knee problems, and we considered making her a reservation on a mule, and they didn't really recommend that. They said that would be harder on a knee than walking. So
Were the mules running? Were the tourist mules running?
Just think, you're going down like this for 5 hours. And so you're basically standing in the stirrups and you're using your knees to hold on.
But I'm talking about when y'all were there in January.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The tourists were running?
Oh yeah.
You bet.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah, they took our duffel down.
I know that. I thought they were just.
But yeah, they were going. But we just decided we would rather walk. It's kind of a matter of what part of your body you want to have hurting.
Yeah, pain level.
So, but yeah, they actually, if you look real close at that picture we had looking down on Phantom Ranch, there was a mule string forming up right there to head back up. And we saw them headed up.
But were there tourists on the back of those?
That was just a freight train. But, we saw, actually when we were in Indian Garden, we saw a bunch of riders. Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty gutsy on the ice.
Well, the mules are pretty sure-footed. They seem to manage okay. But we sure enjoyed our yak tracks. But
They'll have spiked shoes.
yeah, I don't know what they do to them, but they were going. So
We do want to suggest, even in Dallas, with the ice storms, especially anybody, these are an essential piece of equipment to keep you from falling.
oh, they're wonderful in an ice storm.
They're not very expensive, and they're worth their weight in gold to get across the parking lot.
But yeah, they were really essential for this trip. I mean, those trails, I mean, like I said, they're wide trails, they're good trails, they're what the Park Service calls corridor trails. They're heavily maintained and they're wide, but there's a 500-foot drop beside them, and you really wouldn't want to hit an icy patch and slide off. And with the yak tracks, we always felt very secure. Anything else? Yes?
Are they just as much at full capacity in August when people are
pretty much.
It took you like 10 hours to get out. It sounded like.
Yeah.
Out, and that was, other than the ice, that was some cool conditions.
Well, we weren't trying to set any speed records for sure.
But people hiking out of there with 120.
Yeah, they do it.
We took lunch at Indian Gardens, so we took about an hour lunch, so.
Yeah, we took.
Yeah, we were, getting up, we got up to Indian Gardens, and we're like, yeah, we're making good, not bad time, 4 hours, that's not bad. Had lunch and all that, and then we hit the ice. And that last half, you're like, oh God, are we gonna get
But Indian Garden is almost exactly halfway in miles, but it's only about a third of the way in climbing. So it's pretty easy going to Indian Garden. Because the time we backpacked it, we got to Indian Garden for lunch. So, and just had a real easy lunch and then did a day hike and just thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, people do it in July, but they recommend, that you get started like at 4 a.m. so that you're doing a lot of it by light, before it starts getting hot, especially that bottom part. So it's people do it. I'm not going to. I never make it when it's that kind of temperature, but people do. Anything else?
We need to give Bill and Sue Greer an incredible
thank you, thank you. I'll turn it back over to Dan here.
Thanks, Bill. I guess that's the last time we'll ever hear from you.
That's it. See you later, Bill.
No? You gotta come back and give us a program on the Sancti Christos. Okay, before we adjourn, I want to make a couple of more brief announcements. Right after we adjourn, Arthur Keene is going to offer our Sierra Club 101 class, back in that corner. It only lasts like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but you will learn more about the Sierra Club than you used to know. Then, after everything is over here, we, a group of us go to the Blue Goose Inn, which is up on Midway, just south of Beltline, to eat dinner. And I think the club will spring for a couple of plates of nachos. So,
$2 margarita.
oh, and it's $2.
It's the most important thing.
Okay, you Alkies, it's $2 margarita night tonight. So that's after everything else is over. If you want to eat dinner, there will be a bunch of people up there. Okay, that's it. The meeting is adjourned.